market with real estate is that we have to leave the house every time, so we show it.
Yeah.
So that means
Yeah.
2 dogs, kids in tow, and there's no. I was asking, Cynthia. I was asking her about if she misses open houses. She says, "Oh my God, yes." 'Cause, I used to open your house for 4 hours. People would just like swing through,
Yeah. You just
and
hang
now it's
out.
by appointment only. So
Yeah. Hopefully, man, hopefully with the vaccines and whatnot, like, with Biden being in office, hopefully things come somewhat back to normal, because it's been a hell of a year.
yeah, it's been rough, and as you know, some things had started before that, for me,
Hmm.
and that's become lighter. So you know, I tell you, one of the biggest, not to be negative about anything, but one of the biggest problems in my life is my age, right? So
Really?
just like a young person can't find a job because they're too young, I'm getting to a point where they're like, well, this is a little riskier. He's a little
Huh.
older. He's not going to be around as long. So it's really a matter you have to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And I hope my biggest advantage is that I don't think like I'm my age. I
Right.
like to be around younger people. I like the energy. I like the ideas. I like the technology.
Hmm.
So we were just talking about two friends that tend to put themselves in a situation where there's people that are 10, 20 years older than them. And you can tell. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
for
It's like
sure.
who you hang around, you can kind of tell.
For sure.
So, I think I have some to add, right, to society or to business or whatever. But definitely, I know from a business point of view, you do look at those things, and you're not supposed to, but it's reality. It's all right. So
Yeah, it's a different climate. That's why I love the idea for the podcast so much. I love you getting into that space and creating, because it adds depth to you. You're not another salesman. You're a person with all sorts
sure.
of life experience. Why are you interested in the podcast?
I just, I, there's 80 million podcasts out there, right? I think that's a
Hmm.
real number or more. Um, I'll tell you a funny story. So my son came to me once, and he had asked me for some advice, and he's 33 years old, and I gave him the advice, and he came back to me about a week later, and he says, "Hey, this friend of mine told me this," and this guy was older than me, and I said, "That's exactly what I told you last week." I didn't say it. It meant more to you, right? So I look at all these, the Grant Cardones of the world and all these, Tony Robbins and all, and I think they're great, right? I think whatever they do in their space is awesome. But I think I have something to add in more of a casual, real life thing. I'm not going to, I know I was taking some notes the other day, how to start my podcast off. And there was 4 things it will not be. It won't be politics. It won't be religion. It won't be me taking you out to my mansion and showing you all my Lambos,
Yeah.
and saying, I can teach you how to do this in 10 days. It's just not going to be, it's going to be a real reality. And, when we had a discussion about this imposter thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, people, I do a lot of Zoom meetings during the week now because of obvious reasons. And we're all in the same boat, right? We're all just people. We all just want to feed our families, and we all have nice things. And I remember actually, I think it was Zig Ziglar or somebody, I mean, going way back.
Hmm.
Nobody wants the same thing in life, right? If we wanted this car behind me, you'd get a different color than I would probably, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you, so I think that, I do have a lot of life experience from raising 8 children, 2 grandchildren, and I do have a different perspective on things. And it's funny, I think that people think they know who I am, but I don't think that's always true, because I'll have somebody say something to me, and I'm like, why would you think I think that way? I mean, you know,
It's
well, I know your
crazy.
politics. You really don't. I hate to tell you, because I never talk about them. So
Yeah, no, and we become so divided and so labeled and so categorized, and I I think it's the only thing that's going to remain is our ability to be human. Our ability to have our story and our brand and our narrative.
yeah,
I mean, sales the same way. Like, people buy people, not actual people, but people buy
100%.
from people they know, from people they have relationships with. You get referrals, you get customers. I mean, everything that we're taught about, like, specific strategies and scripts and blah 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 blah, it's about how can you make somebody else feel, and who are you to them.
Yeah, it's funny. There was in the 60s, there was this guy named Dr. Spock, and he was like the expert on how to raise children, you know.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but not Star Trek Dr. Spock, another guy. And my mom used to say, you know, his books are great, especially when the kids can't reach the table because they could sit on the books, right? So
Yeah.
so they could wouldn't bump.
Right.
She says because the books were worthless. I mean, it's just like a lot of these. Everybody's writing a sales book, right? I work with a guy that writes a sales book. I know all these people that write sales books, and it's such an end. Sales people are like artists, right? They are all a little eccentric. They all have their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
You know, they tilt the paper different, and they do all kinds of different things. But when it boils down to it, you like to buy from people you trust, right? So if you tell me you're going to do something, I really need you to do that because
Yep.
I'm counting on it. And it's definitely it's a weird relationship, salesman and customer. And I've been
Hmm.
in businesses where I've had really good relationships like that, and I've been in some where I didn't, not so much. Maybe it's a different, you know, profession that I failed at sales and I've achieved big sales. So, there's I think a lot of times, and like I said, not to get negative, when I was running the Poway Chamber, I'd watch people come in and I'd like, this person's not going to be in business in a year, not because of who they are. It's just that they just didn't either maybe they just didn't have a good product. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes your product just sucks, Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not as good as what you can tell it. So I would always tell people, you could sell on price, you can sell on value, you can sell on different things. I mean, I could go in and sell you something that was going to break, and I'll tell you, look, this is going to break, but you
Hmm.
could buy 4 of these for the price of this one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of make up your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's something that you have that I feel is becoming more and more rare, is that people that can actually talk to people, regardless of your age, regardless of whatever it is, people that actually can actually talk to people, I'm seeing is more and more rare, because I'm looking for people in my business that can help me, because I carry 90% of the sales for what we do. And there's not a lot of people. There's people that want to work on the back end. There's people that want to work on graphics and the website, or they want to be a part of the business. But as far as
Yeah.
like frontline sales, there's not a lot of people that want to do that.
But I think you have that skill, by the way.
Thank you.
But you have to find people that'll talk to you too, right? That's the
Right.
other side of it.
Right.
That are going to be opened up. I know when I was in the HVAC business, we sold, big exhaust fans and lab exhaust fans. And as the engineers got younger, they wanted to talk to us less, right?
Mm.
You'd go to their office and there was no catalogs, there was nothing like, because they did everything online.
Yeah.
Whereas the old guys took up 300-400 square feet of space, and when they needed something, they'd go pull a catalog out of it and they'd thumb through the pages.
Yeah.
The younger guys are like, no, I don't need to do that. I said, you need a set of catalogs? They go, nope, everything's online, right? Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's good then. So, you have to recognize who you're talking to too. Sometimes we
Hmm.
try to talk to people who don't want to talk, and then we
Sure.
just burn a bridge. So
Yeah. Wasting everybody's time.
that's right.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you want to call your podcast No Limits? I'm curious.
I'll tell you, and I might have told you this story, and I don't want to keep telling stories the whole time. So there's 4
Okay.
pieces to my podcast. One is limitations in your life, telling your story in life. I think that's important. People don't think their story's important, but it is. It's
Uh-huh.
important to somebody.
Uh-huh.
They go, oh, my life's boring. I just do bullshit. There's something about your life that's going to resonate with somebody.
100%.
And the last thing is this self-esteem thing. I just think we have, especially this last year, I think our self-esteem has just gone into the toilet.
Yeah.
The limitations thing. So I told you, Kit and I, my wife and I, were going to go to see Tony Robbins. I got this really good deal, and we were going to go for 4 days and do all this stuff. And I started thinking, we were talking one night, and I said, if we go to this, we're going to be all jazzed up when we get back, right? Monday morning, we're just going to be lit. We're not even going to touch the ground. We're walking. But by Wednesday, are we still going to have that same,
Right.
that same enthusiasm?
Right.
I said, what are we really trying to do here? We need to address limitations in our life. Every single person has them, from the poorest homeless guy to Jeff Bezos. There's something limiting him to get to that next step. And it could be money, eating right, whatever it is. Could just be having a relationship with one of your kids that you're
Yeah.
just not getting through. So I thought, if you could address those limitations, right, and get rid of those limitations, bring those walls down, how much more effective would you be in every part of your life, right? I know people that are super successful and can't talk to their wife, right?
Yeah.
They just don't, either they don't care or they don't know how, and they're embarrassed. And mostly guys like this, mostly guys are embarrassed to tell someone they can't do something. I'm the first guy to tell you, I'm not a carpenter. When we built this house, I hired a carpenter. I don't need to be Tim the Tool Man, right? I would rather be at the beach than hitting a nail. But
Yeah.
he's good at that, so let him do that. By the same token, let me do the sales part. You know, if you're an operations guy, let me handle that. I won't overpromise. Let's work together and get the sale the right way, right? So it's lasting. So the no limitations was if you can get rid of those limitations in whatever aspect it is in your life. I was talking to a person the other day. I said, you know, she drinks a lot of diet soda. I said, you know, she's out walking and trying to get in shape. I said, it's one of the worst things. You could be better off drinking regular soda. If you do the math and do the research, you're better off drinking something with sugar in it instead of that aspartame or whatever's in it.
Yeah.
And she says, I never thought of that. I'm trying to be health conscious. I said, well, drinking diet soda is not. So that's a limitation she has.
Yeah.
And if she could get over that, if I could educate her, she could do the research because it's all out there.
Yeah. You know, it's funny.
She would do better.
It reminds me of like when I've been looking at COVID and I've been looking at all the stats and all the things that have been happening, and COVID has been such a limitation for us. But I think what's so interesting is that it's revealed how vulnerable we are from a health perspective and how vulnerable we are from an economic perspective. That we can't stop working for a month without some real economic hardship. That if
Right.
people don't work every single day, we're screwed. That means we're riding that line. You know, the average COVID death has a comorbidity of 2.8, which means that they died with COVID, but they had 2.8 other things that were affecting their morbidity. Like it's exposing all of these vulnerabilities and these limitations, and the same kind of philosophy of that idea of like, well, I'm going for walks, but I'm not going to deal with my diet soda, or I'm
Exactly.
scared of COVID, but I'm not going to go out in the sun and get vitamin D and work out. And it's like addressing limitations. There's so much that you have to be honest with in yourself. You have to be able to say, oh, I can't stop smoking. You know, we have to be able to put the limitations up there in the front. And I'm curious, because I'm right there with you. I think this is some of the most important work that we could ever do.
So let me finish that story though. So what
Sure.
we did, didn't mean to interrupt, but so
No,
what we
please.
did, so what is holding us back from where we want to go? I wanted to do more public speaking at the time. Obviously, it was okay to do that. And I looked at a picture of myself at a chamber event, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, you're huge. So, and my wife was like, yeah, I'd really like to lose this weight. You know, it's like we're getting older, and we went. So we hired a trainer. We took that money we were going to spend on Tony Robbins, and we hired a trainer, and we went twice a week. And I lost 65 pounds in that year in 2019.
There you go.
And I was lean as shit, man. I mean, we were both looking fantastic, felt better, more energy, everything that comes with it.
Uh-huh.
And I said, see, that was the key. So we addressed that limitation, and then I was able to wear a suit again and look like, listen, if a 300-pound guy is going to get up, 400-pound guy is going to get up and try to motivate you into getting in shape, sometimes it's not, right?
Yeah.
The best visual.
Yeah.
And, you know, so if I'm going to get up and say, hey, you guys need to address your limitations, I need to address mine. I can't, I'm not going to be that, you know, that dad like my parents were that said, hey, you shouldn't smoke. And they're smoking in the house or drinking black coffee. They're doing, but don't smoke. And I'm like, really? You know? So that's why I want to call it No Limit. Listen, this podcast is as much for me. It's actually probably more for me than it is for the people that are listening, because I need to be accountable.
Yeah.
So
it's different. It's different when you know you have people watching. I mean, you have kids, so clearly, you know, but it's different when you know that, you know, there was one person maybe that's listening to what it is that you're saying, and they're looking at, you know, if you're holding up the promises or the gospel, if you will, that you're preaching about life. But I'm curious, why do you care about this work? You know, because like I said, I'm right there with you. I believe in it so much, but I feel like it's so much easier to go the route of more the victim, where you say, well, I can't do that because of this, and this. And then, you know, I have too much going on this week and this month. And I think we see more of that. Whereas you're stepping up and you're saying, no, I'm actually going to host a show talking about these things that are the opposite of the easy way out.
Well, it's because as corny as it sounds, I really love people. I've never met anybody I didn't love. I've met some people I don't like very much. Right. But I've learned something from everybody, dude. Every kid, adults, senior citizen, everything. Someone's got something in their eye that attracts me, that, you know, that I just love. And I'll tell you, I put a positive message on Facebook every day of the year. Every day I put something on Facebook. And I tell you, if I stop for a week, I get people texting me saying, dude, you're all right. So someone's listening, right? Or they'll say, I've had my daughter do this. Man, Dad, I needed that one today. She's in Louisiana. I really needed to hear that today. And I get that a lot when I do that. So somebody's listening. If I can just get one person to go, if we start talking about these limitations, because I think I added excuses in there for this reason. I have the best excuses to get out of anything.
Yeah, I hear you.
We all are excuse geniuses. And they're so bullshit sometimes, right? And I even look at myself and say, did you really just make that? Is that how you're not gonna, it's like this weather's cold, you can't get up and exercise, and you're like, oh, it's cold outside. I'm like, are you serious? Because I belong to that. You know who David Goggins is?
Oh yeah.
The book Can't Hurt Me. So I belong to his group on Facebook, and I'll push that group button sometimes, and here these guys are like in the friggin' snow and tank tops, running up a hill with dogs. They're dragging the dogs instead of the other way around. And I'm like, or you see a guy, there used to be a guy that went to the gym when we were going that only had one leg. I don't know if he was military or what it was. He's in there doing squats, and I'm like, are you fucking serious, Ed? You won't do it's gonna hurt your legs if you do squats, and this guy's got one leg? That's shit, right? Or you look at a guy like Nick. Do you know who Nick is? It Vocek, the kid with no arms or legs that gets out and does personal speaking. You got to see this guy. He's from Australia. He's friggin' amazing. And you're like, wow, there goes my excuses.
Yeah, but I mean, that's beautiful because it's so easy. And I think our parents and I think society a little bit places these limitations on us because they want us to be safe. You know, don't chase your dreams. Don't go try. Don't like the same thing. Like, don't go out because you're going to get cold. You're going to get sick. Trying to keep you safe. And limitations is interesting because it's something that we put on ourselves. It's not always excuses, but it's just something that we don't think is possible. And then you see somebody like a David Goggins, or you see somebody like a Tony Robbins, or somebody that has a crazy story, and you go, holy shit, where were his limitations? What about mine? Are they really what I think they are?
And if you probably know people that are wealthy, I do too. I'd never met. So I went to this motivational thing at San Diego State once, and Zig Ziglar was there, and about 6 other people. And Steve Forbes got up. You know who Steve Forbes is? He's Forbes magazine. And he says, there's 2 ways to make money in America. One is to earn it, work really hard, and, sleep 4 hours a day and do all, or you can inherit it. He says, I recommend the second way, by the way, like I did, but I'm, 1 in a million. So the people, that are wealthy, if you talk to them, there were times when they were not wealthy and they could have, been limited, and they could have made excuses and they didn't. And so but if one person out of this podcast, and I'm not being corny, I'm being completely honest with you, can go, shit, Ed, the reason I'm doing this is because I heard you talking about that. And I thought, it's just one thing. And I swear to God, dude, I was laying on the floor once at this trainer's place, and it was about 6 weeks in, and he has me, I'm laying flat on the floor, and he's got my hands as high as I can raise them backwards. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't look that bad, right? I mean, do I really need to go to this?
It's worth it.
Yeah. And like your wife, as much as she loves you and your kids or your mom and all that, I'd say, we're going out to dinner, and I'd say, hey, how did I look? She goes, oh, you look great. I'm like, I don't look great. You're being nice. And that was cool. But this trainer did not do that. When I would, sometimes I'd come, like I hadn't seen him for a week, or for whatever reason, he'd like, what the fuck are you eating this week? Because he knew, right? Yeah. So he called me out, and I needed that, and I need it again. And I'm calling myself out, and my trainer will be on my podcast because he's got that kind of attitude. And so that was a long answer to a simple question, but
no, dude, I love it.
Because I think more people need to be out there helping people and not being such dicks, right?
Yeah, and listen, if they're going to hear somebody's voice, right? We live in the age of influencers where everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got a channel, everybody's got their own thing going on. To listen to somebody that's honest and humble and has some good intentions, I feel like that's more rare than it is common, and they're going to hear some voice.
I don't want to separate it out where, like I probably will never be on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? 9 billion listeners or whatever. And most people probably think that. Well, you come on mine, and maybe we only have 100, 1,000. Hopefully we get to 1,000. And we'll just talk like normal people, because we don't have to be super gazillion. I stopped playing the lottery when it got to a certain number, because I'm like, I'd ruin my life with that much money. I didn't have the silliest thing, but I'm like, oh, that's the limit.
That's too much.
I couldn't even give it away. I'd be hounded. It would ruin my life. X amount of dollars, I think, would be great, but when it got to a certain number, I'm just like, well, let someone else win it and ruin their life. Wouldn't be good for me. Shit, with 8 kids, they'd probably move back in.
We're going home.
That was- so
Well, I love it, man. Where do you think this comes from? Where do you, because like I said, it's easier to be the victim. It's easier to find somebody that has had a rough life, has been through some shit.
I don't
And
know. So I was the youngest of 4 kids, and my
yeah,
brothers and sisters were definitely more aware of my parents' lean years, right? And my parents had every problem everybody else has. My dad was an alcoholic. He died young. My mom struggled, but was the ass kicker. I mean, I don't know how the hell she even did Christmas, for us. But
mm-hmm.
but I was a little insulated from that. I moved to Poway when I was 12. And for people that don't know who Poway is a very nice little bedroom community in North San Diego. And so I was a little more insulated from the pain that they had. And I don't know, man. I remember a guy, my principal, coming up when I was 10 years old, put his arm around me, Mr. Koskinen. I remember this guy. And he said, Ed, you're a leader. People listen to you. And that stuck with me. It's like, wow. I mean, I didn't ask for that, but if that's the case, I don't want to steer them wrong, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to take them down a bad road.
Yeah.
I could do that, I guess, but I don't know. I just think that I've always been, I started working young. I like to have nice things. I don't know.
Yeah, man.
That Ferrari right there is 675,000. Probably won't get that this year, but you never know.
Hey, man, 2022, it's coming.
That's right, baby.
It's amazing. Well, I hope you do it, man. I hope I hope that, because you never know. You never know. You mentioned a guy like Rogan. If you go back and look at his old stuff, you go back and look at his original episodes, they were just him shooting the shit like in his bedroom, like just like this, with a little pop filter on his mic, shooting the shit. And next thing you know, he's smoking blunts with Elon. So I mean,
but I think he's an honest guy. I think he would tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And he's enough of a man to say, oh, well, you don't agree? Well, that's cool. I mean, we were all products of our environment. So
yeah,
if you and I mapped it out from when we were babies to when we were 18 years old, very different lives.
Mm-hmm.
We get that stuff from, different places.
Mm-hmm.
Probably pretty conservative in a lot of ways, but I also understand. I hope I understand people and their attitudes towards things and why they have that attitude.
That's something that intrigued me is that you seem really open. You seem like your shit. You've been through your life, but you still seem open.
Yeah, I mean, why at this point? Why lie? We were talking about this the other day. So on Saturday we lost my mother-in-law, my wife's mom passed away Saturday morning, and we were kidding about her, kind of reminiscing yesterday about how blunt she was with things. Like you'd ask her a question, she'd tell you whether you liked it or not. And my mom used to joke with me, "Don't ask Ed a question you don't want to hear the answer because he's going to give you the truth." Right? Even when I was 18, you might not like it, but I didn't do it to hurt somebody. I just said, "Well, that's my opinion on something. Doesn't mean it's right. It's just my opinion." So, and I think it's true. As you get older, you start to go, the filter doesn't matter that much. I would tell you things. I don't understand a lot of what's going on with younger people now. Not because I'm ignorant or not willing to learn, but it's just different. It's different from when I grew up.
Very different.
Right. The men were different. The women were different. Everything was different. You understand in the 70s, you couldn't say ass on TV or they'd shut the whole freaking TV. Right? Isn't that crazy? I mean, you couldn't.
I feel like we've lost that perspective in a huge way.
Yeah. Listen, I'm a Catholic and I don't know if devout's the right word, but I go to church and I do all those things and I'm involved with the Catholic Church. But I do things that people go, wow, Catholics wouldn't do that. And I say, how do you know? I'm a Catholic and I do it. So,
yeah.
I mean, so I dropped an F word on you. I mean, is that the worst thing that could happen? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, and the perspective of the past too, like I was talking to my friend the other day. She said she was at Starbucks and they were outside picking up drinks or whatever. And that there were these teenage girls saying that COVID-19 was the worst thing by far that had ever happened to the United States. And it just, COVID's terrible. It's been really rough, but it's not World War II,
Exactly. They probably need to pick up a history book. And,
right.
I was telling somebody, I was making fun. I was actually laying in bed thinking of what I would say in a comedy routine about the 80s, about my life. And I thought, if someone asked me who was the best president you ever lived under, and I'd say, well, Ronald Reagan, right? I graduated from high school in 1980, and he just got elected that year. But to put it in perspective, I just graduated from high school.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really good job, so I was driving a Corvette when I got out of high school.
Damn.
I had physical parts of me that worked awesome, right? I don't want to get gross. And I'm like, who wouldn't been happy in 1980 if they just graduated from high school and had money and chicks and all that stuff, right? I had hair,
right.
I had a full head of hair, a mane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was it the president or was it just the time of life, right? So when they say COVID's the worst thing, and I've told my kids this, listen, this is not the worst problem you're going to have in your life. Or some of my kids, I had 2 kids that have substance abuse. This is not the worst problem you're going to have in your life. It's not going to get, I'm not saying it's not going to get better. You're going to create what you want, but you're going to have problems. I don't care how much money you have, how much whatever you have, something's going to happen. So just be able to deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end of the world. Just keep going with it.
Yeah. And I think that's where, it gets into so much interesting stuff, because almost also coming back to addressing limitations. There's interesting things that happen where you're going to have trouble in your life, and the tighter your limitations are, the more you obey your limitations, the worse that trouble is, because there's chaos waiting for us, right? There's something out there that's waiting for both of us that's going to come, and somebody's going to die, or we're going to lose our money. Like, something's going to come along. But the more we can forge ourselves, the more we can do this kind of work, the less I believe, the less impact that chaos has.
I don't think, I'm not a proponent of doing anything you want that makes you happy. That's, because that's just chaos, right? That can be chaos. We have to have laws. I was watching a woman park in 3 spots today and went, you know what, there's a reason there's lines there, but I don't have to, we don't have to be so conservative. You have to do that if there's no other people in the parking lot and whatever. But I also think that, like, my wife and I are selling this house. We're addressing an issue with us. So we want to change our life a little bit. Yeah. And as long as we're on the same page and we're not hurting anybody, and the kids are all taken care of, we've all done our due diligence in that in our life. So let's try some new things. Let's not. Conversely, her parents are in a house, and the mom just passed away. The dad probably won't last a month. They've been married 57 years, and maybe they didn't do some things they really wanted to, and now they're just, and then it's over, right? We don't know if we're going to walk out of the house today and get hit by a plane. You really don't know.
You don't.
So, not that you should be able to do anything, but you should at least enjoy, people and life and things like that. Like I said, if I can leave this earth and people can go, wow, I remember Ed used to motivate us. It's like, is that bad? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, could be a hell of a lot worse. That's for sure.
Exactly.
So I'm always interested in people's turning points, and that's overcoming limitations, right? I'm curious if you're comfortable talking about it. What was, because there's been several moments in my life where there was a time where I made a decision where I was like, this isn't right. I can't do this anymore. I need to do something different. Do you have something that comes to mind as far as a big turning point for you? What was the situation? How did you make the decision when you had kids?
My first child. I went from, it's funny, I'll have to show you a picture privately once of the hair I had and just the look, right? You'd go, oh my God. Do you know the movie Lords of Dogtown?
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched that the other night. That's me. That was me, except I wasn't with Tony Alva and, all those guys, but that was us when they were kids. And as I went to work and as I got out into society and started learning some not so great stuff sometimes, worked at a grocery store where there was no limits on the way people talk to each other or whatever. Practical jokes, fun. We were having fun, but it got ugly sometimes, right?
Right.
So I wasn't not going down, I'd say a bad path, but I could have.
Yeah. How old were you at this point?
Oh, shoot. So 18 to 23, 18 to 24, those years.
Yeah.
We were doing things we shouldn't have been doing substantially. Is that a word?
Of course.
But I met my wife, my first wife, and we had a child, and I went, wow, that's just like a light switch went on. Man, she's going to be watching me now. Now I got to change.
Yeah.
And I had people come back to me and go, oh my God, Ed, you're like a different person. I said, I got a kid now. That was, and then I always wanted a big family. I don't know if I wanted 8 kids, but that's the way it turned out. And we're going to have our 14th grandchild in July. And that's my whole life. I know,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? So I have these kids, and the awesome thing though about kids is, so you go through raising kids, and it's not always fun, right? Obviously, you could probably, yeah, I know you don't have kids, but you could kind of extrapolate that it doesn't
Yeah.
always
I'm
look
sure
fun.
that there's some rough
But
moments.
yeah, but now when they're adults and they're succeeding and we
Yeah.
have these whole different conversations about life, and they listen to me once in a while, that's pretty cool, right? So now
I'm sure
you're
that's
in this
cool.
leadership role. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you as a parent, I mean, you're talking about, you're all those things that companies want, right? You're a manager, a leader, you're all these
Yeah.
things. And it's kind of like taking that mom and going, how much is your mom worth when she's the accountant and she's the HR person and she's all these different things. Dad's the same way. I mean, I've had to do shit I didn't want to do, work jobs I
Yeah.
didn't want to work two
Yeah.
jobs sometimes, not eat once in a while because my kids needed to. I mean, I had those rough times like everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but damn, dude, then you see them grow though, and you're like, man, like my oldest daughter. I mean, I could talk about it. I don't want to get into all that, but they're just doing so good.
Good.
It's like shit. That's a product of what I contributed to that. You know?
Yeah. Was it hard for you at all? Like the context of the situation, because I'd imagine that going from some kind of carefree freedom to all of a sudden you have this responsibility. Was it tough, or was it just like a switch?
No, I think it's something I always wanted to do. So I had nephews and
Yeah.
nieces that I would take care of, but it was harder for my ex-wife. Probably why we're not married. Really,
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
she had a hard time switching it, and she wasn't as carefree as me. I think that I got to, what do they say, sow some oats, right? I mean,
Yeah. You
using
got to
that cliche.
explore a little bit. Yeah.
I did, and listen, I hung out with some. I just talked to my first major girlfriend last night. I texted her. We were talking. She just moved back in with her mom to help her out because she's elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, shit, man, this is. I mean, I went out with this girl when I was 17 to like
Yeah.
22,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
kind of cool to think of. I had really good relationships, is what I was getting at. These
Yeah.
girlfriends and stuff I had, we had, it was really, really good relationships.
Yeah.
And
You've always kind of been a people person, it sounds like.
yeah, always. I mean, I was always that person. I was one of those kids in high school where I didn't belong to a clique, but I was able to kind of had friends in every little group. It was
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, no, it was. I swear to God, it was like instantaneous flip switch as soon as that girl was born. That's
Wow.
my oldest daughter, Samantha.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Lot of I think I told you it's the highest predictor. This is off topic, but the highest predictor of somebody being incarcerated or killed is an absent father. A lot of guys go
Oh
the other
yeah.
way. A lot of
That
guys go
is
the other way.
that has
The
been the
kids get
exact
born.
opposite. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
was a single parent for 4 years.
Wow.
I had 3 daughters at home, 4 daughters at home, and my other kids were living with their mom, and that was a trip. Let me tell you
Yeah.
that.
I'm
I don't
sure.
know. I still don't know how to brush a girl's hair, but those are things you learn, right? So I was walking the dogs yesterday because we had to leave the house to do a real estate showing, and the dog did his business, and I had to pick it up. I'm not going to be rude,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if it's worse checking to see if a kid, did that, or this is humiliating. But I'll tell you, it makes you humble when you have
Yeah.
to change diapers and you have to, you know, talk, just raise little kids. It definitely makes you humble. You don't, whatever ego you had goes right out the window when you got to change a crappy diaper. And then you go, oh, good, I did a good job. And then boom, they do it right again. And you're like, that's interesting. And you don't get angry. It's not the child's fault, right?
Yeah.
But
Life.
yeah, I don't know. I even, the hardest part I have dealing with it now is that I don't have those little kids. And so my wife and I spent so much time with our kids
Yeah.
camping. We've never, we went on our honeymoon when we got married. We took our kids to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So now looking back, we're like, okay, we don't even know how to live,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
two people. So that's
Yeah.
kind of weird. That's something we're having to overcome. And that's part of the reason we're selling the house and kind of doing our own thing.
That makes sense. That would be good for the podcast, man, to be talking about that, because there's a lot of people in the same boat. My parents are in that boat with me.
Yeah. I mean, you
for
raise a
sure.
kid so I've been a parent for 35 years, 34 years.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, now shit, I don't want to watch TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to go out
Yeah.
and ride my
You only got
bike.
so much Netflix. Yeah.
I know. And we stayed in shape, pretty good shape. So, and we have a lot of energy. So it's not like I'm not sitting around, bro. I mean, we're going to be out doing shit. So,
Good.
yeah. But it's helped me in business for sure. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you learn a lot from raising kids. And I'm not saying that's the way everybody should do it, but it works for me. I mean,
Yeah.
you learn how to get along with people.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you have a favorite limitation that you've overcome? Something that's tough?
Oh, that getting in shape last year was probably the biggest one.
Really?
And I have, although I've slid, I'm nowhere close to where I was. And I
Yeah.
know what to do now, right? I know what we have to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
here, so yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say, give me some context. Like, how did you get as big as you felt you were, and what was the breaking point for you to decide that you needed to get the trainer and do the thing?
I think the biggest, unfortunately, was looking at my friends and going, damn, I look that old kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? I look
Yeah.
that bad. But I've overcome so many limitations. I mean, I didn't go to college. I went to college to become a cop, actually,
Wow.
and that didn't work. It just wasn't. I joke around that people would say, "You're going to carry a gun every day," and I'd say, "Yeah, that's probably why I didn't get in." I was going
Yeah.
through a divorce when I was in the background check, and they're like, "Ed, this isn't," and it was good because it really wasn't. I didn't have the emotional stability to do that. Not that.
Hmm.
I too much compassion. I think if I had to go to a house where a child was hurt or something,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could stay.
Composed. Yeah.
On what I
Yeah.
so. I mean, worked my way up through different companies and learned things, and I think probably one of my biggest successes. Two things that I always relate back to is the people I surrounded myself with have become family, right? Friends, whatever. I would do anything for them. I've gotten calls. I need a jump. I'm in the car. I go.
Hmm.
It's not. Oh, I just took off my pants. It's not one of those things. I get ready. I go help them because they need help right then.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I've had the ability to learn products and services and things like that quickly. So, I mean, that was that thing I told you about. Everybody you talk to, you can learn something from.
Yes.
I was talking to someone recently about the product we had, and they said, "Hey, how's your product knowledge on, the stuff I'm selling now?" And I said, "Well, it's going great. I mean, I pick up this stuff fast." And I said, "Do you know how to measure for a crane to pick a, piece of HVAC, something off of a roof?" They're like, "Well, no." And I said, "Well, see, I know how to do that. And I know how to size a fan for a building, and I know how to, install a Pepsi machine with all the plumbing and everything and all. So I picked up a lot of that stuff over the years, and that was important to have that product knowledge.
Hmm.
That was something I was good at. I can learn it. If I don't know how to do it, I can learn it. I mean, I worked on cars for years because I couldn't afford a mechanic, and I just figured it out.
Yeah.
I told you the way I learned how to use a computer was I got a computer for dummies, and I got a $3,800 compact computer, which is a piece of crap now,
Yeah.
and I just figured it out. And that was my parents. That was them. Hey, if you can't afford it, figure out how to make it, or figure out how to make the money or whatever. So
Yeah.
so those are the biggest limitations. But dude, every day is a limitation, right? You
Yeah.
got to wake up. It's
Yeah.
never, time to wake up, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't
No,
feel like it anyway.
that's the thing. And it's crazy how much, other people or us, it's usually not external stuff. It's usually us in our head. Why haven't you read that book yet? Why haven't you worked out? Why are you eating that thing? We're always trying to figure out the little monkey in our head that's making us do something other than what we want to do. We say we want this, but we end up doing this over here. You're couldn't be more right. And I think that's the core of what we're experiencing in the world and society and culture right now is people don't know who they are. They don't know
And
where they
that's
want to
that
go.
self-esteem piece that I was talking about.
For sure.
You have to, the first thing you got to be able to do is get up and look in the mirror and go, "I love you," right?
Yes.
I know that sounds so corny, but if you
That's
don't go
true.
out of that house going, "I really care about myself," you're screwed. It bleeds out. It's worse than writing, "I hate myself" on you, because people
Yeah.
can feel it.
Yeah.
And when you go into a situation and you don't have any confidence or whatever, it's just so apparent. I mean, it's so transparent. You
Hmm.
can, I would rather just say, because I've had this happen. "Hey, dude, you know how to do this?" "I have no idea." But I can figure it
100%.
out. I'll get you the person that, that's the thing. Or instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I know how to do that," and you don't, that's a bigger problem.
Hmm.
So, but that first look in the mirror every morning is going to usually tell you how your day is going to go. And I see
Yeah.
so many beautiful people that don't see that beauty in them, right? And that's with kids. You really see all this potential, and then they do something stupid, and you're like, "What the hell? did you know you could have done this? And they're like, oh, and hopefully they go, oh, but a lot of times they're like, well, you're just the dad, you don't know. But that's usually what happens.
Well,
But
I'm curious, and I think we could probably wrap up with this.
yeah,
What do you think your advice for someone helping someone to look in the mirror and be able to say that to themselves?
that's tough, man. That's a tough
It is.
question
It is.
because I struggle with it. Everybody struggles with it.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos struggles with it. I just use his name since he's the richest man in the world. He
Yeah.
doesn't like himself all the time. I know he doesn't. And if I was able to sit down with him, I'd probably get him crying in 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
because there are things inside of us. You got to understand a few things, that there's a lot of people out there that love you, whether you know them or not. That's
Mhm.
important. That there's people that know you can do it. And sometimes you need to, hang out with someone that knows you can do this thing and tell
Yeah.
you, show you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I went from when I started that working out to where I was at, I never even fathomed it. But you got to be patient, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
happen over. And as it started coming off, I'm like, shit. We did this 30-day challenge. I know we're wrapping up, but at
No,
the
take your time.
last
No, we got
month
time.
we did our 30-day challenge. I lost 19 pounds by quitting drinking,
Yeah.
by eating clean, by doing all those things.
How do you do
I
that?
won this contest.
How do you do that? How do you quit drinking? How do you eat clean? Because there are people say it. Well, I just did it. It's like, how did you do it?
You do it at one day at a time. It's kind of a drug
Yeah.
reference, but
Yeah.
it's exactly true. You don't look to Friday. You start on Monday and you wait till tomorrow at the same time, and then you do it again for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
One of my daughters wanted to be a singer. I think she still aspires to do that. And she would say, her stepdad would tell her, look, you need a plan B. And she would tell that to me. And I'm like, screw plan B. You need plan A. And that's what you need to follow. And you need to make little goals. Like, I'm going to clean my room today. As stupid as that sounds, when you're done with your room, you're going to go, oh, this is badass. I just accomplished something. Right.
Yeah.
So I said, make a goal for Friday, Paige. Don't make a goal for
100%.
To be Whitney Houston. Let's just go little pieces, just bite off little chunks of that thing. And like I said, if I can tell somebody that they've already read it 100 times and they go, oh, it makes more sense when Ed said it, then
100%.
That's the success, right?
Yep.
So you do just bite off those little chunks. You go, all right, breakfast is, what am I having for breakfast now? And you look at lunch. I mean, those are how you do it. So it was nice that my wife was doing the same thing. So we were on the same page and we were encouraging each other. But when that weight starts coming off and those clothes start fitting better, then you just get ramped up, right? Then it just fuel. So my advice, just the smallest freaking thing you can do.
I agree.
Get 20 of those under your belt and to just keep the momentum going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I throw something on top of that. Also, you could be happy with, give yourself some credit when you do something right, because some of the people I didn't do enough. I did it, but see, it's only been one day since I haven't drank. It's like, that's one day, motherfucker. That's better than nothing. Like, give yourself some credit. Notice the things that you're doing. We respond.
Well, and I mentioned, I have
nice
2 kids that have had some substance abuse problems, and it's that one day at a time, right? It's part of their mantra. I just got to get through tomorrow to noon or tonight at 9, whatever the mantra. And then you go to 10 or whatever. It's just those little things. So listen, when you start to feel it is those times when you're in the gym and they say, well, you got to do 12 of these and you do 14 and you're like, just one more. And it just builds, it just keeps building.
Yeah. Yeah.
But COVID has, we beat ourselves up. COVID has beat us up a little bit more, but you know what, dude, I have faith in people. They're resilient as shit. And
absolutely.
And we don't need to have the government tell us what we're doing. We don't need anarchy either, but we don't need, you're on these Zoom meetings all the time. There's 12 people on the screen. 2 of them are making a shit ton of money in the mortgage business right now. So the COVID ain't affecting them in a bad way.
Yeah.
And there's Kathy's doing well with insurance. Well, then you're like, well, there's 3 people. So maybe in 2 years, the mortgage rates are 9% and they're not doing so well. And we are. So
yeah,
that's the
better
other
things
thing.
are coming.
You pick people up, right? You got to say, hey, good for you. I'm bringing behind you. Well, you're struggling there. That's all right. I want you to succeed. My time will come.
Mhm.
Maybe I didn't save enough money. That's on me, not on you. So it's that encouragement. The more people you encourage, the more encouragement you'll do it for yourself.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, I mean, I look forward to hearing more of your stuff, man. I look forward to seeing that podcast drop.
Well, you're going to be on my podcast now, so
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'll give you anytime, any day. You let me know.
all right. My goal is to get one out this week. Is to get my first one out, and
Right
then
on.
I have some people that that are totally willing to come on, and it's just going to be, this is the format, right? There's no,
Yeah.
I'm not
Hang out.
editing anything. I'm not doing
Hell
any of that.
no.
It's just going to be fun stuff. And
Yeah.
listen,
Some conversations are 30 minutes, some are a couple hours. Like you never know
right.
where it's gonna go. But I mean, we're just human beings. I'm excited to hear it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
See you. Have a good night.
You too.